Welcome back to another edition of the Pitch Putt and Puff podcast. My name is Roger, aka RGB. Appreciate everybody tuning in this evening. Before we get rolling, got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. 420 Bliss, located at 740 Hoosick Road in Troy, New York, right up in the Walmart Plaza. Make sure you stop in there, check them out. Edibles, flour, tinctures, pre-rolls, disposables, you name it, they got it. Let them know the Pitch Putt and Puff crew sent you. Also, check out Trouble Off the Tee. TroubleOffTheTee.com. Use promo code RGB for 15% off site-wide. And then for a limited time, we got a special on the polos. Buy one, get one free. Use promo code PUFF. Also, make sure to check out Marty's book on Spotify, Trouble Off the Tee, narrated by Jake Adams from Country Club Adjacent. Really good listen. You can listen to it literally in about 2 days, just sitting at work. So really good book. Make sure you check them out. But tonight, I'm going to introduce the host of Fairways and Dreams and the founder of the Golfer Gang Network, Jeff Hartman. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, Roger. I appreciate it.
No, this is awesome, man. I appreciate everything you've done for us. This is the least I can do is get you on here, man.
No, it's good to be here. Like I said before we hit record, I'm glad to be answering questions and not asking them for once. So this is good.
On the other side of the desk, yep.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into golf?
Oh, dude, how I got into golf. Well, I grew up in a golf family. So grew up with one older brother. He's 3 years older than me. And my dad has golfed his entire life. And so when we were, as long as I can remember, we'd be in the backyard. My dad would get us little sawed-off clubs, or he would actually, get us. I remember we had a sand wedge called the Pal Joey, and it had a little kangaroo on the back. And so we would chip around with that. My brother, he outgrew it, so he gave it to me, and then I used it, and we just followed in our dad's footsteps. And he'd go on golf trips. He'd play all the time. He'd play in tournaments. So when we got old enough, my brother and I were, we golfed in high school, continued to golf after high school. We both went to the same college. And so we continued to play together, my brother and I, for a long time. But it's just always been a part of our DNA. It's always been a part of our life. Golf has always been, it's kind of funny. The seasons rotate around golf. It's like, well, in the winter, is it warm enough to go out and golf?
Right.
That's kind of how we gauge the weather in our family. It's, you're supposed to go up to 50. I think I'm going to go golf. So, yeah, it's just always been a part of our lives, man. And even watching golf, I could tell you a million stories growing up watching our family loved Freddie Couples. He was our favorite PGA pro of all time. And watching him win Masters and competing in the Players and all these great tournaments and stuff. So, yeah, I've just always loved the game. It's a challenge. I've not mastered it by any stretch of the imagination, but that's why I love it.
Mm-hmm. Every single day, it's a different challenge too. It's one day it could be the driver, one day it's the putter, one day it's a short game. It doesn't matter. Every day it's a different challenge.
Trying to put it all together is like a Rubik's Cube.
It's tough. It's tough. I had a good one going today. So I go into work at 4 a.m. and get out at noon.
Okay.
And I have to be home by 4 o'clock. So I'm about 25 minutes from the course. So I was even going into 17 on the back. I shot a 42 on the front. So I had a pretty decent round going for myself. Like I'm a mid-80s golfer. And I'm like, oh man, I got a chance to do something here. I keep checking the clock, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to finish. It was me and Anthony from upstate were out there today. And I was like, oh, I can't finish. I was just curious of what I was going to have. I was on fire. The putter was rolling. I changed up my stance with the putter late, and it's just been working for me. And unfortunately, I couldn't finish the round because the little one getting off the school bus. So family first, had to take care of her.
I get that, man. Trust me.
Yeah. And you were just saying before we record, like you were before we were recording, that you go every time you go to the range or something, you bring the little ones with you.
Yes, I have 5 kids. My oldest is my only son. He's 15 years old. My youngest, I have 4 daughters for those that can do math. And the youngest is 5 years old. And I can't really golf without 1 or 2 of them. It's one of those things where it's like that's my hall pass is to take a kid or take kids, plural. So today I took 4 of the 5. We were just kind of cooped up in the house. It was a nice day, but my kids are homeschooled, so they were all doing schoolwork and stuff. I work from home. I have that luxury. I had gotten my work, and I was like, you know what? Let's go hit a bucket of balls. And so we went over. There's a range not far from our house, and we hit a large bucket, had a good time. Everyone feels better after you get outside and you swing the club, hit some raindrops, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. It's crazy to see them develop, not just physically, but in the game of golf. None of them are going to be PGA pros, nor do I expect them to be PGA or LPGA pros. But at the same time, my gosh, it's just fun to watch them play. And and to enjoy the game that I grew up enjoying and
Mm-hmm.
still do.
And you're carrying that tradition down from your family tradition or
Absolutely.
just the golf. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. So how did you get into podcasting? How did that all start for you?
So, well, this was probably back in like 2012, around there, 2011, 2012. Grew up in a small town of Wheeling, West Virginia. For those that don't know the state of West Virginia, it is the tiny little piece. It's called the Northern Panhandle, pinched between Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I grew up about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. And so instead of going the Ohio route, all the people in the Northern Panhandle are big Pittsburgh fans. And so I grew up watching the Steelers, the Penguins, and the Pirates. And so I was graduated college. I was teaching. I was a middle school PE teacher, and I always loved writing and talking about sports. And I grew up listening to Dan Patrick and all these great sports talk people, and I just always thought that I had the ability to do it. And so I started to do just a Steelers podcast on my own. It started with a buddy of mine at work, and we started a sports podcast, and he got a new job at another school. And so I just started to do my own podcasting. And so I eventually got a little side hustle going, and I worked for a company that paid me a decent amount of money to be the editor of the Steelers website and to podcast about the team. And that's grown. And I continued to do it, continue to work on the craft, continue to get better. And so that turned into a full-time job this past school year. Last school year was my last school year teaching. I taught for 16 years, and now I'm a network director at Fans First Sports Network, which I cover the Steelers still. And I also construct that network the way I constructed the Golfer Gang Network as I started a golf podcast in November of 2023. I just have always loved to talk about sports. And even when I was a little kid, I'd know the stats and I'd know the background of the players, and people would want, I love talking about sports. And so I tell people all the time, I have the best job in the world. Like, I literally get paid to talk about sports. So what I can't complain about anything.
Absolutely not. I remember as a kid studying the back of baseball cards and stuff.
Yeah.
To remember people's stats.
For sure.
Now kids just pull it up on their phone. I haven't thought about that in about 20 years until you just said that. And I was like, I remember studying where my thing was, I'm a big college sports fan. So everybody in the NFL and NBA, I could somewhat to this day, I could probably tell you a majority, well, without transferring 47 times now, where they went to school. And that was like my thing. But now it's like, I probably have to Google a good chunk of them though, compared to back in the day.
I mean, the kids today that they don't really baseball cards or sports cards are making a comeback to an extent. I used to save my money and ride my bike to the local card store, and we would get my next door neighbor, who's the same age as me. He would get Beckett, and people that are like 40
That's me. I'm
plus
40
older.
Years old, yeah.
You remember, I'm 41. You remember Beckett magazine, and that was a way for you to see how much your cards were worth. And, you know, if you got a card that was worth $5, you felt like you hit the lottery.
Oh, yeah.
At the same
Absolutely.
time,
I got it in a pack. I got it in a 50-cent pack, and it's $5.
Exactly. Yeah, it was awesome. And so I obviously, you would always trade cards, and I would always try to get my favorite players somehow, some way. And I have a couple cards that might be worth something now, but I'm not going through the whole process of the mint. You know, you got to get it approved and all this stuff. I've got a Barry Sanders rookie card from Oklahoma State. I've got an autographed Mario Lemieux upper deck card as a Penguins fan, and that's in a plastic case. It's like screwed together. I've never even taken that thing out. I love the stories behind the players. I love the stats. You know, my mom used to always tell me, she'd say, Jeff, oh my gosh, if you could only apply that to something worthwhile, that's what she would tell me. And I laugh at her still to this day because she's my number one fan and she listens to all my podcasts. Like, Mom, like, this is it. Like, I turned this into a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, look at that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what made you get, what was the idea behind the Golfer Gang Network? You were doing the other one, so you just decided to, what made you go that way?
So I run the networks. I don't own the networks. I'm not, I don't have that type of influence or financial backing.
Sure.
So my boss, the CEO of the company, said in 2024 he wanted to branch into new realms. He wanted to kind of create new networks that were a little bit more specific, a little bit more niche. And so I had started the golf podcast in November of 2023. And I had found through Instagram just a bunch of these podcasts like yourself that had no affiliation with anything. They literally were doing it for the love of the game. And so I said, man, there's all these podcasts out there. Like, why don't we try and get them all together? And he goes, sure, go for it. So the Golfer Gang Network was created. And I think we have 13 podcast feeds. We're growing. We continue to add more almost by the month.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the beginning, I mean, I think it's a really cool little venture that I've done. What's on the burner coming up? We're actually going to looking into starting a mixed martial arts, UFC type MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu network. And I've got some connections there that I'm starting to poke and prod. And so I guess it's part of my job is just to get these things off the ground and get them running. And I do love it. I love my job.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you, dude, honestly, like the guys I've met, like the one night in Pinehurst guys, obviously I deal with Anthony being so close with Upstate Golf guys. He's a piece of work, that kid. We bust his chops so bad. First thing he does every morning is wake up and look at his numbers. I'm like, buddy, you just posted it 7 minutes ago. Relax. But he's a great dude. He's excited about it. Like he actually honestly remotivated me to get like really going, because I did my little thing for the golf season last year. October, November, December, I really was running out of stuff to talk about. So it just came to the point where I had to figure out if I was going to go all in or all out. And then I literally decided to go all in. And about 2 weeks later, I heard from you. And I was like, all right, this is a sign to go all in. And then I put out 10 episodes the past 10 business days. And I've just been staying busy and networking. And the people meet is the best part. It really is. The guys from the drop, I met a bunch of them. Mulligans and Hackers guys, those guys, I would never meet somebody from Alberta, Canada, if it wasn't for this the network.
I think that for me, like honestly, when I podcast now, I don't so much, especially my golf podcast, I do it just for the stories. Like I love people's stories. I love having those conversations. People could say like, oh, your podcast numbers suck. Okay, that's fine. I don't care. I don't do it for that. That's my other job. Like my other job is where I got to make sure I'm getting the numbers. For this, it's literally just a labor of love. Like I love talking with people. Tomorrow or whenever this runs on Tuesday of this week, I interviewed 2 of the 3 Break 80 guys. I love the Break 80 podcast. They're hysterical. They have a great dynamic. And we talked for like 45 minutes on the podcast, and I could have talked to them for 2 hours and 45 minutes. It was just fun. It was funny. We were laughing. It's just like you said, when in the world would I ever talk to a couple guys from Minnesota? I live in Maryland.
Right.
That are golfers that are that somehow we're connected now. It is pretty cool. That's the power of the network. It's what I love about it. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And it's just obviously continuing to grow. Like, and that's the other thing. People are always skeptical. Like I've tried to do some recruiting for it, and it's so crazy how skeptical people are. And I'm like, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose. It's just opportunities to gain is like my big pitch. And I don't know if they think I'm just a liar or whatever, but it's crazy how many people like just don't take advantage of a great opportunity. It really is a great opportunity.
You listened to the Upstate guys when they had Ryan from the Drop podcast on there, and they were talking about how they thought I was like doing some Ponzi scheme or something. It's like, no, man, I'm just trying to get a bunch of podcasts together. I don't know how to do it any other way than how I ask is for people just, hey, let's just get on a phone call. Like, just give me an opportunity to explain things. And then if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But just give me that opportunity.
Yep. And that's it. And it's been working out great. I love it. I mean, just the access to the people, the StreamYard, like all the stuff like I didn't have before because I was doing just audio for a long time. So when the StreamYard popped up, now I have access on YouTube and everything, clips to put on Instagram that I didn't have before. So
absolutely.
It's awesome. So what do you got coming up with Fairways and Dreams?
Well, like I said, the Break 80 podcast drops Tuesday. And so that's where I have those 2 guys on, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to hear how that turns out. Other than that, I've really decided to start leveraging the network. I had some really great guests on. Former PGA caddy Don Donatello was one of my best guests that I've had. He was on the Big Break show, which if you remember on the Golf Channel, the Big Break show, he was on there twice as a contestant. And he actually is now a PGA Tour caddy for Alex Smalley. He joined me, and it was a great conversation. He told some really funny stories from being on tour. I've interviewed people that went through 2 stages of Q school. Now they're doing the mini tours down in Florida, and just a lot of great people. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time I want to step back a little bit, and I want to just talk with the people that I'm working with closely. Mm-hmm. So I've had Dan from Leave the Pin on. I had Golf Jitsu, Joe on last week. I've got the Break 80 guys on. I want to have you on my podcast, the Upstate New York guys. I want to go through Mulligans and Hackers, all those people, the Drop guys. I want to have them all on the podcast. I want to talk. I want to hear their stories. I want them to get an opportunity to talk about themselves and what they're doing. So that's what's coming up. And so every Tuesday I do what I call the 2-man scramble. That's where I have a guest on. And at the end of that podcast, we always do rapid fire where I ask them random questions about golf. It's a lot of fun. Thursdays, though, are my solo show. That's the Fairways and Dreams show where I talk about, could be anything. It could be about an upcoming golf tournament. It could be about my own game. It could be about a story that I tell about a family member, whatever a case is, whatever I want. I do touch on the PGA Tour. I always give betting odds that are going on and stuff like that and where I'm leaning in that regard. I do a podcast about gambling as well for the other network. So we always touch on golf and the PGA Tour. So that's like Tuesday, Thursdays are when I drop my podcast. Tuesdays with the guest or guests. Thursdays by myself solo show.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now is just the structure.
Yeah.
It's really like, because in the wintertime I had nothing to do, so it was no problem sitting back and recording. But now that I can get out to the golf course and do some things, I'm like, all right, when am I going to set this? When am I going to drop this podcast, or how long am I going to hold on to this one, and certain things like that. You gotta balance it all out. So it gets a little tricky at times, but trying to figure out all that. I actually just got my first paid sponsorship deal, so now I got to figure everything out on that end. So things are making way. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think a lot of people get discouraged when they drop 10 episodes or 30 episodes and like, no one's following me. No one's doing this. And I had 140 followers at Christmas. I'm almost at 1,700 on Instagram. My views are slowly, my downloads are slowly going up. I see a little bit of progress. So it's just got to keep grinding at it.
It took me, I've on my other network, when I have my Steelers coverage, we're one of the predominant Steelers podcasts around. And we had years where we had over 3 million downloads in a year, and we've had 10,000 download days and stuff. It gets insane, but people don't realize the work and how long it took to get there. Yep. I mean, it took years. Like I said, it started in I started in 2012. I mean, for crying out loud, like we didn't start seeing those numbers until like 2020. Yep. You're talking about 8 years of grinding. And the biggest thing that I can tell anyone that wants to get into this space is that the one thing that you have to be willing to do is to be consistent. Yep. And if you can be consistent, people will acknowledge that and they'll honor that, and they'll know that you're always going to be there. And so golf is a different world than when you're talking about any major sports league, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, doesn't matter. The golf is, people want to hear the stories as much as they do about PGA Tour live crap. And I found that people almost care more about like, what's your game like? Like what where are you struggling? Because they see themselves in those struggles. We talked before we went on the air, man. It's like a Rubik's Cube trying to figure out the game of golf. Every time you go out there, it's always something different. You and I share that in common, regardless of your handicap, regardless of where you live, regardless of what course you're playing. We can all agree on that fact. None of us are PGA pros that are going out there and shooting 63s and 64s. So I think that's what's really unique about golf is that a lot of this stuff, you can have a podcast that's why you love the game, why you hate the game, why the game hates you, doesn't matter. And that'll never get old. People can listen to that 2 years down the road and it probably will never change. So it's a lot of fun. I do enjoy this golf podcast.
That's awesome. Now with the other one, the Steelers one, you've probably been busy this week with the draft coming up.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Yeah, it's a busy time of year. This is the busiest weekend of my entire year. Like that includes in-season stuff. This is ridiculous. Yeah.
I could imagine. So, what do you think? They have to go quarterback, right? Did they get a quarterback?
The Steelers?
Yeah.
So they got Russell Wilson on the cheap. The Denver.
Oh, that's right.
The Denver Broncos are picking up the tab for that this year. Then they traded for Justin Fields, a conditional 2025 pick it was a 6th-round draft pick in 2025, which could be a 4th if depending on playing time. So that they're set at quarterback.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they got Fields too. Fields is actually, I think, a good fit for them.
I think so too. We'll see. So now that they're looking for offensive line help early, that's my guess is rounds 1 and 2 will be trying to address some offensive line. They need cornerback, wide receiver, a little bit of help on the outside, but they'll be competitive. We'll see how they do. The quarterback situation is going to be the biggest question mark around the Steelers this year.
Yeah. as well as my Giants, man. I've ever since the Giants drafted Daniel Jones, I've had a real tough time sitting down on Sundays. I'm a Saturday guy. I love college football.
Well, I didn't mind the Daniel Jones draft selection. It was the contract you gave him after the draft
Yeah,
selection. That's
that's
the second contract was just exorbitant and it made no sense. The dude hadn't done anything. He took him to the playoffs one time.
yep,
And I believe they lost in the wild card that year. And
yeah.
it's like, wow, you're gonna give this guy. No, I think they actually might have won a game, but still, um, you're gonna give this guy this much money, like a king's ransom, and he hasn't proven anything. And they're regretting it. They're regretting it. A lot of people think they might draft a quarterback in this year's draft. We'll see.
It's going to be interesting. Got to do something. The problem with them was they always hold on to guys too long. Like they held on to Eli too long. They
Yeah.
always hold on to guys too long. But then like I'm glad they didn't pay Barkley because that would have been wasted money in 2 or 3 years as well. And that with that offense, and there's nothing there for it. You should have traded him
Yeah.
last year and got something for him.
Yeah. I can see
Would have
that.
been the right move. But Jeff, the way I like to wrap this up is I do have 3 questions. Pretty much the same questions. What's your favorite club in the bag?
Right now, it can fluctuate. Nah, it's always my 7-iron. My 7-iron. If I get
Me
the
as
7-iron
well.
in my hand, I just feel super comfortable. I could hit a million different shots with that club, from a punch to a fade to a draw. Like that's one of the few clubs in my bag that when I get over the ball and it's a stock yardage, I'm like, okay, I've got a good feeling about this shot.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I've never mishit it, but that's my favorite club.
Me as well. Same exact reasons too. The legit. It's like the first club I felt comfortable all the time hitting, and then that's how I learned how to do like hit a draw or try to wrap it around a tree or hit a stinger, all that kind of thing. That was just my go-to club, the 7-iron. What's the favorite course you ever played?
Favorite course I've ever played. I would probably have to say that I do love a challenge, playing courses that are really, really easy are fun because you can score. But after a while, I get kind of bored. I want a challenge. And I would say that even to this day, as a 41-year-old man, the course I grew up playing in high school, which now the West Virginia High School State Championship is there. It's a Robert Trent Jones design in Wheeling, West Virginia at Oglebay Park. It is still one of the toughest golf courses that I ever play. It's hilly. The wind is always a factor. The rough is long. The greens are big and they're undulating. You got these subtleties to the course that if you played it, even if you play it a bunch, hell, like I've only broken 80, I think, on that course like 3 times, and I've probably played it hundreds.
Yep.
It's just, it always has my number. And so every time I go off there, you score well. If you shoot in the 70s, you say, okay, I hit the ball well today. So I'd still probably say, the Robert Trent Jones design at Oglebay Park, which is also mirrored right next to it, is a Arnold Palmer design, which is a lot of fun. That's a great course. I love that course too.
Nice. The course you just described sounds really similar to the course I play. Real hilly, undulated. The greens are super firm, super fast.
Yep.
Very, very challenging. Like it's certain parts of the course are easy if you know the course. But if you don't know the course and you take those chances, you're going to pay for it for sure.
Yep.
And then one thing you want to improve on this season on the golf course.
This may sound vague, but I just want to be more consistent in all phases of my game. If I can just eliminate the duck hook off the tee, even if I overdraw it and I'm in the left rough, that's fine. That's more consistent than a hard pull into the woods, and now I'm having to punch out, and that's gonna kill my score. I still do every now and then get like the flub chip, where you're trying to get too cute with it and you decelerate. Yep. Next thing you know, you don't even get it on the putting surface. So when I say I want to be more consistent, it's just play the shot that you is there. Even if it's I missed the green side, get the chip within 15 feet and give yourself a legitimate shot at par instead of trying to get cute, maybe going too long, or we've all sculled the chip over the green.
Oh yeah.
That level of consistency is what's going to get me back to where I want to be in my game. So that's what I would say.
That's the exact conversation I was having with like Anthony today, because he's got a tournament for his amateur tour at our local course this weekend. So he was getting a practice round in, and I literally probably know that course better than anybody. I'm up there 6 days a week, so I'm telling him the line. And I'm like, play the right edge or play it here and do this, and he was just overcompensating, not realizing how fast the greens were. And I'm like, that's started telling him, put it in a hula hoop, slowly he started doing it. So hopefully, I told him, I was like, I can hop on your bag for Saturday if you need me, man. He actually called the guy and asked, but the course doesn't allow, the guy doesn't allow it. So I wasn't going to go carry the guy's bag anyway. But Jeff, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, especially with the draft coming up. Where can everybody? I appreciate everything you've done for me with the network and all the opportunities for sure. Where can everybody find you?
Well, first, I mean, I'm glad to be here. And Roger, you were the first podcast that came on board. So you were the first guy to believe in me in this project. So, man, that's
nice.
that is not forgotten on me. Okay, so let's remember that. You can find me. My most active is actually on Twitter or X. If you follow me there, you're going to get some Steelers stuff too and NFL stuff. But I do talk about golf there as well, and that's at J Hartman HARTMAN_PIT. On Instagram, my golf account is thegolf_life. You'll see me post a lot of stuff about my kids golfing, clips from my podcast and stuff like that, but links on how to get to the podcast. But if you want to find the podcast, Fairways, the and symbol, Dreams, Fairways and Dreams. That's a play off of the Cocktails and Dreams, which if you're not a certain age, people do not get that reference from the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, a very young Tom Cruise. But Cocktails and Dreams, that's where I came up with the Fairways and Dreams name and the moniker. So anywhere we get your podcast, you search Fairways and Dreams and you'll find it.
Awesome. And then also check out our new website we have for the Golfer Gang Network. It's golfergangnetwork.com, correct?
Golfergang.com. That is correct. Golfergang.com.
Golfergang.com, where you can find all the other podcasts. Once again, Jeff, truly appreciate your time and appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate Jeff hopping on the podcast here tonight. Really appreciate his time. He's done a lot for everybody in the network. It's a great opportunity for everybody. So make sure you check us out, thegolfergang.com. Also, just want to take a quick second. Shout out 420 Bliss, located at 740 Hoosick Road, Troy, New York, Walmart Plaza. Go check them out. Ty and the crew. They'll take great care of you, as they do the Pitch Putt and Puff crew. Make sure you tell them that we sent you, as well as Trouble Off the Tee. Go check out Marty on Spotify, Trouble Off the Tee. Great book, great listen. Also, go to the website, troubleoffthetee.com. Use promo code RGB to get 15% off site-wide. And for a limited time only, we got the buy one, get one free on the polos. Use promo code PUFF. Once again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. We got some more bangers for you coming up this week. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon. Later.